You saw that moment, right? That wasn't a normal racing incident. The kind that makes you sit up straight and think, wait, what just happened here? Because from the very first lap, you could tell this race was going to spark some serious debate. Turn 1, tight corner, high tension, and two champions unwilling to blink. Lewis Hamilton dove down the inside, late on the brakes, confident as ever. Max Verstappen, taking the outside line, left just enough space. Or did he? The Mercedes twitched, both cars bumped wheels, and for a split second it looked like they might both be out before the race even began. But somehow, they both kept going. Then came the chaos that followed. Hamilton cut the corner slightly, Verstappen ran wide, and the steward's radios lit up immediately. Within minutes, messages were flying. Under investigation for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. You could almost feel the tension building as every fan watching tried to guess what the outcome would be. And then, boom, the decision dropped. Hamilton hit with a penalty. Verstappen, nothing, not even a warning. It didn't take long before social media exploded, with fans arguing that the stewards had once again made things unclear, inconsistent, or maybe even unfair. But here's the real question. Why did the stewards see Hamilton's move as punishable and Verstappen's as clean racing? What did they see that we didn't? Because on replay, things don't seem so black and white. If you want more of these detailed breakdowns, subscribe to Fast News F1 and enable notifications. We're pushing hard to reach 2,000 subscribers, and your support really makes a difference. Now, tell me in the comments, do you think that Turn 1 contact deserved a penalty? Vote yes or no, and drop your reasoning below. Next, we'll go frame by frame, and you'll see exactly why this incident turned the paddock upside down. Let's slow this moment down, because in Formula 1, the truth is always in the details. We're talking milliseconds, inches, and steering angles that can change the entire narrative of a race. As both drivers approached Turn 1, Hamilton was already lining up the inside. You could see it coming. He positioned early, braking right at the limit. Verstappen, on the outside, carried more speed, trusting that Hamilton would hold his line and leave space. But the margin was razor thin. At the apex, Max kept his wheel turned, but the Red Bull was already drifting wide under braking. Hamilton, meanwhile, had nowhere to go. He tried to hug the inside curb, but the rear stepped out slightly. That's when the two cars touched. Freeze the footage right there. Hamilton's front left, Verstappen's rear right. No massive contact, but enough to unsettle both cars. Verstappen straightens up, but Hamilton, forced offline, cuts across the corner exit. It wasn't a deliberate shortcut. It was survival. And yet, just seconds later, Hamilton is back on track, slightly ahead. That's where the trouble began. Because according to the FIA's gaining lasting advantage rule, even if you go off track to avoid a collision, if you come out ahead, you're expected to give the position back immediately. Mercedes hesitated, and that hesitation cost them. Verstappen's radio was calm. Hamilton's was filled with frustration. He pushed me off! What was I supposed to do? Now, let's rewind to Verstappen's own off-track moment later in the race. Similar corner, similar pressure. He runs wide, all 4 wheels beyond the white line, but no penalty. Why? The steward said he didn't gain a lasting advantage. But when you watch the replay, it looks eerily similar to what happened to Hamilton earlier. That's what's fueling this whole debate. And then there's Leclerc's incident. Lap 23. Wide exit. All 4 wheels off again, no investigation. So what's consistent here? Nothing really. And that inconsistency is exactly why fans feel frustrated. Do this. Watch the onboard again, side by side. Hamilton on one side, Verstappen on the other. Notice how both are reacting to the limits. Both on the edge, both fighting for the same line. One gets penalised, one doesn't. You can almost hear the collective sigh across the paddock. Now I want your take. Which incident looked worse to you? Hamilton's or Verstappen's? Drop the timestamp in the comments the second that proves your point. Let's see who's got the keenest eye for racecraft. And if you're loving this deep dive style of analysis, hit that subscribe button. Seriously, it helps more than you think. We're growing fast toward 2,000 subscribers, and every single click keeps us making these breakdowns week after week. Because next, we're getting into the real story, the stewards' documents themselves. What did they write, and how did their words line up with what we all just saw on track? Stick around, this is where it gets controversial. Alright, now that you've seen the footage, let's go behind the curtain, into the steward room. Because when that decision dropped, it wasn't just a snap call. It came after analysing onboard angles, telemetry data, throttle traces, and radio messages. But when you read what they actually wrote, it doesn't quite match what fans saw on screen. According to the official report, Hamilton was deemed to have failed to maintain control of his car, leaving the track and gaining a lasting advantage. In their words, he could have taken further action to avoid leaving the track. Sounds straightforward, right? Except, when you slow down the replay, it's clear Lewis was reacting to Max's drift. He didn't have another option. It wasn't about control, it was about space. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The same document describes Verstappen's incident later on as a loss of rear grip that resulted in a brief excursion without gaining a lasting advantage. In other words, same action, different interpretation. And this is the key frustration for fans, and even some teams. Because if the rules are consistent, the outcome should be too. The FIA's rulebook says it plainly. Drivers must make every reasonable effort to stay on the track and may not gain a lasting advantage by leaving it. But the term lasting advantage isn't clearly defined. Is it 1 car length, 1 position, 1 second on the clock? The ambiguity is what allows for judgment calls, and judgment calls are where controversies are born. So when Hamilton was penalised, the FIA pointed to failure to yield the gain position. But here's the twist. Mercedes' data shows he lifted slightly after rejoining, implying he tried to neutralise any advantage. The stewards said it wasn't enough. They wanted a full position swap, and fans aren't wrong to question that. Because, as we've seen in past seasons, similar moments between other drivers went unpunished. That inconsistency erodes trust, not just between teams and stewards, but between the sport and the fans watching at home. Let me ask you this. Do you think the stewards apply the same standards to every driver, or does reputation play a role? Drop a yes or no in the comments and tell me why. I'll feature some of your takes in the next video. And if you want more of these deep rule breakdowns, subscribe to Fast News F1 and ring the notification bell. We're pushing toward 2,000 subscribers, and your support keeps these investigations alive. Because next, we're diving into the reaction that shook the paddock, from the driver's words to the team's silence. Trust me, that silence speaks louder than you think. When the steward's decision hit the screens, you could almost feel the paddock freeze for a moment. Usually, within minutes, the teams start pushing their own narratives. Statements, interviews, a few sly digs. But this time, something was different. The reactions were oddly restrained. Hamilton's first response over the radio was pure disbelief. "He forced me off. How's that fair?" His tone said it all. But when he got to the media pen later, his answers were more calculated. "We race hard. Sometimes decisions go against you," he said. That's Lewis being diplomatic, but also strategic. Mercedes didn't want to escalate things publicly. They've learned that going head-to-head with the FIA rarely pays off. Now contrast that with Verstappen. He shrugged off the drama like it was nothing. "Hard racing," he said, with a grin that said more than his words ever could. Red Bull, of course, backed him instantly, framing it as just another example of Max's aggressive but fair driving style. The message was clear. No controversy here, move along. But fans didn't move along. Hashtags started trending within minutes, with Justice for Lewis clashing against Let Them Race. And that's the heart of it. The fan base is split. One side sees a double standard, the other sees fair racing. Meanwhile, the FIA stays quiet. No clarifications, no additional notes, just radio silence. Behind closed doors, though, team principals weren't as calm. Reports from inside the paddock suggest Mercedes considered lodging a request for clarification, but stopped short of a formal protest. Why? Because every protest opens Pandora's box. If they challenge this call, they risk every future ruling being scrutinized with the same intensity. And here's the ironic twist. Ferrari and McLaren both avoided commenting altogether. But sources say they're watching closely, because if the steward standards shift, it could affect future strategy calls for everyone. Now, I want to know what you think. Should Mercedes have protested, or was it smarter to stay silent? Vote in the comments, protest or stay silent. And don't forget, if you're enjoying this kind of in-depth analysis, hit that subscribe button and help Fast News F1 reach our next big goal, 2,000 subscribers. Every click really helps us bring you more behind-the-scenes F1 coverage. Coming up next, we'll look at what happens now. Can this decision be challenged? What does it mean for future races? And most importantly, what should you watch for next time? So what happens now? First, expect noise, and then watch for process. The most immediate possibility is a request for clarification or an appeal being lodged. But those are rare and costly. Teams think twice before stirring the pot. More realistically, what we'll see over the next races is how the stewards apply the same language they used here. Look for phrases about lasting, advantage, failure to yield, and justifiable reason, because those exact words will become the measuring stick. For you as a fan, there are 3 simple things to watch for in every controversial corner going forward. 1. The replay. Does the driver clearly exit the white line with all 4 wheels and come out ahead? 2. The radio and the onboard. Did the driver immediately give the place back or make a clear effort to neutralize any gain? 3. The steward's wording. If you spot a line like "no further action" paired with a note about justifiable circumstances, that's the red flag that a similar move could be treated differently next time. If you want a short checklist to remember, off-track plus position gained, your expected giveback, hesitation, likely penalty, ambiguous wording, future controversy. Now for you, tell me in one sentence what you want analysed next. A specific race moment, a driver's season, or stewarding consistency. Drop it in the comments and I'll pin the best suggestion. If you think Mercedes should have protested, say protest. If you think silence was smart, say stay silent. Quick, clear votes help us run polls and feature fan opinions in the next video. And before you go, if you found this breakdown useful, subscribe to Fast News F1 and click the bell. We're aiming for 2,000 subscribers, and your sub keeps these deep dives coming every race weekend.